There's big Uber news today. The ride-hailing company will pay $100 million to settle a class action lawsuit brought against them by some drivers in California and Massachusetts. Now, $100 million sounds absolutely great, but
I'll take some of that. Oh.
But is this the case of winning the battle and actually losing the war? I know you wrote about this on the Daily Dot, Selena. What do you think?
So it's important to note that Uber will pay $84 million to the plaintiffs, and then there will be a second payment of $16 million if Uber goes public and the valuation increases 1.5 times from the December 2015 financing valuation in the first year of the IPO. So it's up to $100 million. I mean, it's still a lot of money, but basically what this means is just like it. So there's this whole ongoing debate over whether drivers are employees or they're simply contract workers that would not get the benefits of being an employee of a company. So the fact that they have reached a settlement and drivers are going to continue to be freelancers in at least with these two lawsuits in California and Massachusetts is kind of a big deal. I mean, it really just goes to Uber's, entire business model. They can maintain having drivers as freelancing contract workers and not have them designated as employees.
It's such an interesting case. I mean, we were just in Las Vegas at a convention, so we took a lot of Ubers and Lyfts. And by and large, whoever you talk to, whatever drivers you talk to, and they work for the company and represent the company, they will say, I love the flexibility. This is a great job. It's wonderful. But then we also had a fan who's been a longtime cab driver in Las Vegas, and he hates it. And he said, this is my full-time job. And I don't have, I have benefits. I don't have to drive my own car, which is great. And Uber and Lyft is coming in and messing everything up. So, I go back and forth. And interestingly enough, too, I've had really no problems with Lyft or Uber in San Francisco or D.C. or San Diego. But in Las Vegas, they make it very difficult because they're set up for tourists. And, there's lots of people going from hotel to casino in cabs. And so several times the people outside of the hotel told Jason and I, oh, yeah, you pick up your Lyft that way. And it was exactly the wrong way.
Pretty much they just pointed to the door that you go through, and then you get lost in the casino trying to find the place. It's obvious that a city like Vegas is set up for cabs and has been for such a long time. So, they see it as kind of like an intruder of sorts.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you kind of get that everywhere, right? And not just employees having benefits and, having a car, but there's also a lot of different regulations. And when you're getting, your license to become a taxi driver, it's a lot more stringent. There's a lot more things that you have to do, more rigorous background checks. You have to go to classes. A lot of cabs consider themselves cab drivers to sort of be ambassadors to the city and know every single nook and cranny. Whereas oftentimes, the last few times, in fact, I've taken a Lyft here in San Francisco. The drivers will be like, oh, I live in Sacramento. I come down here because I make money. I don't, I'm not super familiar with the city. I'm using Waze. So you have all of these sort of, the benefits that come with being a licensed taxi driver and working for a company like that is not just, the contract versus employee thing, but there's a lot of more nuanced arguments that go into it. And along with the settlement too, Uber's kind of relaxing or making some concessions over how it treats its drivers. And that includes providing them with more information of their individual rating, which, was a lot of times held very close to the vest. They didn't necessarily get an explanation when they were kicked off of the service. There's new policy explaining why Uber will, deactivate different accounts, and they're considering having drivers petition them to be back and to drive again. And then also another thing that I thought was pretty interesting was they're gonna work to create a drivers association. We'll basically have a representative, elected representation for the drivers. So they can, work with management, but it's very important to know that it's not, they won't have the ability to collectively bargain or unionize.
I think one interesting thing here, and it touches on our experience in Vegas over the last couple of days, is, we ended up using Lyft probably a lot more than Uber. And I'm sure it depends region by region which service is stronger, for an area. I just personally enjoyed the Lyft experience there. One thing I really liked about Lyft, so that you can tip inside the app. You're done. You drop a $2, $5 tip, whatever, based on your driving. You can't do that in the Uber app. Part of this settlement actually enables, Uber says that drivers can now ask for tips. So in this case, one of the things that I really enjoy about the kind of ride sharing thing is that you don't ever have to touch your cash, right? It's kind of one of those kind of pesky situations in a cab experience that you no longer have to do. You do it inside the app. Kind of sounds like probably going to start hearing from Uber drivers, I would imagine, at least having some sort of mention that they're able to take tips. It's not possible inside the app. I don't know.
Well, it's not possible yet. Are they saying they're going to put it in the app or not put it in the app?
They didn't mention, as far as I can tell, they didn't mention anything about putting it in the app. They're just saying you can start asking for tips.
Yeah.
They should put it in the app, though. I mean, seriously, come on. It's so much better that way.
Also, that for them, too. I mean, that was the thing that we talked about. Several of the drivers said, I feel safer not carrying around money. I mean, that's the thing. It's a benefit to being an Uber or Lyft driver as opposed to being a cab driver. We had a driver who had been a cab driver for a long time, had been robbed, and that was no longer a risk anymore because he said some people still don't know that, they just don't understand that Uber and Lyft don't drive around with cash. And if they're going to start taking tips, that's not going to be a benefit anymore either. Yeah, I like it. And I think I was talking to someone else about this, and they said, oh, I just assumed that Uber included the tip, that they pay more to their employees than Lyft does, but I don't think that's necessarily true.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, especially in the very beginning, like you didn't even know, like you just kind of assumed that there was no tip. Like people are like, oh no, it's like included in the fee. Like you don't have to tip. It's not a thing, which was pretty interesting. So I'm glad that Uber added that concession, but still, yes, I do think it should definitely be in the app.
And by the way, before we move on, we also had plenty of drivers who were both Lyft and Uber. And in some cases, when they were scheduled or, about to accept an Uber pickup, when they noticed that we were there with Lyft, they canceled the Uber thing and came over to Lyft. I'm thinking maybe tip might have something to do with it. So there you go. Hey, tips, or the powerful thing.
The percentage that they get paid by the company. Or the percentage that they get,
of
course. That would, I mean, they said, the Uber drivers said, oh, we get paid the same, but either way. But it would lead you to believe if they canceled the Uber and then, picked us up
some
instead.
Sort of benefit there.
Yeah, exactly.